Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 30th. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day so far. Today, we have a big show. So much news coming out of the NFL in the last 24 hours, including but not limited to Anthony Richardson getting benched. The just second-year quarterback already had his leash pulled by the Colts. Trades from the Jaguars to the Vikings, the Panthers to the Ravens, and more. Of course, our NFL rookie report that we do every Wednesday, and our second NBA power rankings of the season. World Series also going on. So much to talk about. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you use either of those two things, you can have your message pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 30th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show with, as the title says, Anthony Richardson officially benched by the Indianapolis Colts. This move caught me, and I know a lot of other NFL fans, by surprise. Anthony Richardson, since he entered the league, since his draft process began, has been a very polarizing figure when it comes to NFL quarterbacking. He's a guy that started just 13 games at Florida. He's a guy who had very obvious issues when he was at Florida, whether it be his accuracy, especially that being the biggest one, but he also had some of the most insane physical tools we have ever seen a quarterback have, ever. And he shows both of those sides every single time he's on the football field, right? You see him make maybe the greatest throw you've ever seen in your entire life, and then the next throw, he can't hit a 2-yard check down. There's lots of ups and downs, and this week, more than maybe any other week, we have seen it really be a glaring issue for the Colts. In the first half of that game, Anthony Richardson goes 2 for 15 with 81 yards, one of those two completions being an absolute bomb, 69-yard completion, right? A big play guy. That's what he is. He can have 12 completions, go for 244 yards. That's just the kind of player he is. He also had a very bad week optically and on the football field. Not just did his team lose after he missed a couple of passes, not all his fault. There were 3 touchdowns he threw that were dropped by his receivers. So it's not all on him. But when we talk about this game, the big thing that everyone is talking about, of course, is the moment where Anthony Richardson tapped out. Anthony Richardson taps out after really just an incredible no gain of a play. He gets caught in the backfield by the Houston Texans defensive line, shakes off a defensive tackle, is able to get to the line of scrimmage, maybe even pick up a yard. He is then gassed. And that's not something that we see happen in the NFL with quarterbacks really ever. You understand with the way that he plays, maybe he is, but what was undeniably unacceptable for him to do there was for him to then tap out of the game. Now, what compounds this issue, and I think the reason that obviously this was made, is the fact that they have Joe Flacco on the bench. And Joe Flacco, winner of the Comeback Player of the Year award last year, currently undefeated starter in the NFL this year after going 2-0 with, not undefeated, lost to the Jaguars, but looked really good as the starter for the Colts. Just in his 2 starts when he was spelling Anthony Richardson when he went down with injury earlier this season. No one with a brain, no one with eyes that has been watching football is going to sit here and tell you that Joe Flacco doesn't give the Colts a better option, a better ability to win now. What this does throw into question, though, and the reason that I still struggle to figure out if this was a good move or not, is when it comes to the future of this franchise. Because this is a franchise that has been mired in mediocrity, stuck in that, oh, we're almost going to make the playoffs range. Ever since Andrew Luck retired, they have gone from veteran quarterback to veteran quarterback to veteran quarterback to promising rookie to veteran quarterback to veteran quarterback. They have had this insane QB cycle since Andrew Luck retired, and this isn't helping it. This is a team that is caught in the same cycle. They desperately want to go back to their winning ways when they had a Peyton Manning. They don't have a Peyton Manning, though. They don't have an Andrew Luck. This is not something that you can just rush. And that was the idea behind getting Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, famously a project quarterback. Anthony Richardson, a quarterback that I still have a long leash on because I still think he has all of the ability to be a great starter in the NFL. Now, that's my bias here. That's me pushing my agenda. But the Colts seem to have lost that. Anthony Richardson has only played 10 games in the NFL. Only played 10 games. And they're already ready to pull the string on him. That is way too quick of a leash for a guy that, again, I will remind you, was a known project quarterback coming out of Florida. This was a guy that was not going to be a snap your finger, get him in the lineup, and you fix your franchise. This is a guy that had all the tools to do it, but you had to develop him. And in my opinion, the best way to develop a guy like that, we saw it in Buffalo with Josh Allen. You look at their two stats side by side, they're very similar over their first couple of games, right? Through the first 10-ish games for both of them, they both had about a 50% completion percentage. And that's the big thing that's being harped on by Colts fans, by the league, by everyone saying, hey, he has a really bad completion percentage, the worst in almost 20 years. You're right. He's throwing and only completing about 50% of his balls. No one is going to argue with you there. It's just the numbers. It's just the facts. But he needs time. He needs reps. He is not going to get better accuracy-wise by sitting behind Joe Flacco. And that's the issue. That is the biggest issue here. There are things you can learn from sitting behind a quarterback. You can learn how to read a defense. You can learn how to be a competent professional. But when your biggest issue is accuracy and consistency when throwing the ball, the only way to get better is to actually do it. You're not going to get more consistent by not throwing the ball. This is a Colts season that, in my opinion, should have been solely devoted to getting Anthony Richardson ready. And if it wasn't ready this season, oh well, load up next season. That's when you can make your do or die decision. This season should have been let Anthony Richardson be that crazy Anthony Richardson, see what he can do on a football field. That leash was pulled way too quick. And if the coaches, if Shane Steichen, after just 2 seasons now, is scared for his job, the Colts organization is doing something wrong. Being completely honest with you, he almost took a Gardner Minshew-led team, a Gardner Minshew-led Colts team, to the playoffs last year. They were arguably one play away from making the playoffs last year, and now if he really thinks he's that close, if that's the reason why they're gonna fire him, that is not a very well run organization. That is an organization who has their finger hovering over the panic button. This move makes no sense to me. I have no idea why now. This is a season that, yes, Joe Flacco gives them a better chance to win right now. But the Colts brass should have come in with the mentality that, hey, this season is the Anthony Richardson season. We're either going to go 17-0 and Anthony Richardson is going to win the MVP, or we're going to draft in the top 10, top 15. This is still a solid team. They need to be okay with that. Anthony Richardson is not going to get better from the bench, and it doesn't sound like this is a long-term decision. I hate this move by the Colts. It makes no sense to me. I absolutely despise it. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think the Colts should have done? Would you have kept the leash going for Anthony Richardson? Let me know in the comments. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention still in football, but we turn our attention to the trades. The trade deadline just about a week away at this point. We had another massive wide receiver move. A tackle was traded. Not something you see every day. We'll talk about that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replace all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 30th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the big dilemma in Indianapolis. The Indianapolis Colts bench their franchise quarterback, supposedly, Anthony Richardson. In this segment, we turn our attention to some other massive news going on in the NFL. A big wide receiver trade to Baltimore, a big offensive line addition in Minnesota, and more have happened this week. We'll break down which one of those moves was the most impactful, which one of them made the least amount of sense, and more. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 30th. But like I was saying, we're getting into the NFL trades with the deadline just 6 days away. Count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days from now, we have the NFL trade deadline. There have been a couple more trades as a wild pre-trade deadline has already gone through. We talk about a lot of movement, a lot of big names being moved, lots of huge receivers being traded. Obviously, in the past, we had DeAndre Hopkins get traded to the Chiefs, Amari Cooper get traded to the Bills, Davante Adams get traded to the Jets, and add one more name to that wide receiver list as Dionte Johnson, after being traded earlier in the offseason from Pittsburgh to Carolina, gets another trade, this time from Carolina back into the AFC North, joining his former rival team, the Baltimore Ravens. And this is a trade that's interesting on a couple different levels, right? First of all, he was a guy that was in a lot of trade talks. He was a guy that he has a contract running out. You're getting a half-year rental for him. The Ravens obviously have their issues with the passing game, with the receiver position especially, although this might have been the best wide receiver room that Lamar Jackson has ever had. They're only getting better. They still have their fair share of drop issues. While Zay Flowers is explosive and really good at, just about everything you want him to do at the wide receiver position, outside of him, you've been relying a lot on tight ends. And Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, guys like that have been playing their role. They've been playing really good. But Rashad Bateman drops a big pass. maybe could have won the game. That was early in the game, though, against the Browns, so you never know. You go out and you get Dionte Johnson. Dionte Johnson might not be the flashiest name out there, but he's a guy that is going to go ahead and really be good at beating man. He's a guy that's maybe one of the best receivers as far as running routes and creating separation. He always has had a little bit of a drop issue back in Pittsburgh, but still, he's a guy that can really help make a difference for a wide receiver room that hasn't really had that great veteran in it for a very, very long time. We talk about a team like that needed to make that move. The Ravens were one of the last ones in the AFC that hadn't made it. All those contenders we said earlier in the AFC had made that move. And for the Ravens especially, this trade is nearly free. You don't often see terms like this. When there's a wide receiver getting moved, generally it's for a draft pick, maybe and a pick swap. But for this one, this is just for a draft pick. And this is the one that threw me off the most. It is for the Panthers get the Ravens 5th round pick, right? Seems like a fine deal comparing it to everything else. But then they're also sending with Dionte Johnson their 6th round pick. This is the difference between about, I'm going to estimate here, anywhere from 3 to 10 spots in the draft. That is about as free as you possibly can get. And if the Ravens don't re-sign him, if he leaves, they're going to get $5 million. They're going to get a 5th round pick. This was basically a free trade for them. That is insane to me. Andre says the Ravens are going all in, and you're right, they are going all in. If this is the year that I feel like they have a stranglehold. Outside of after losing the first 2 weeks, they've kind of gone on a tear. This feels like the best Ravens team. Maybe the defense needs to be a little bit better, but this feels like a Ravens team that has all the momentum. And like I said, you might look like they're going all in, but this trade was basically just, hey, do you want a receiver for free? That's what they just got there. They just got a free receiver. I don't know how you pass that offer up, and I don't know exactly what the Carolina Panthers were thinking. I guess you want to get something rather than nothing. But at that point, don't you want to hold out for anything at all? It's basically getting it for free. Regardless of that, this move, I think, does help the Ravens, definitely. We talk about it already a little bit. This is a move that's really going to increase the passing game, gets a little bit of pressure off of those tight ends, those receivers that have been getting some double teams. You get another weapon out there. That is what is really going to help this passing game. You still have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, which is going to make it just not a fun time for defenses that they're going against. In other trade news, though, one that's a little bit less flashy but might even be more important, more impactful in an NFC that's very jumbled at the top. The Minnesota Vikings, after losing Christian Darrisaw, we saw how much of a different team they were on Thursday when they lost Christian Darrisaw to before and after they lost him, right? They go out and they get Cam Robinson, one of the premier tackles in the league. They get him from Jacksonville. They don't have to pay too much. It's a lot of money. But they go and they get him out of Jacksonville. He's a guy who's kind of been rotting away down there. He's a very good tackle, and it fills a need. It's not often you see a tackle get traded at the deadline. This is one of these moves that we were questioning if it would happen. There's a lot of teams that needed some offensive line help. We see the Vikings are letting this thing go. You talk about the Ravens going all in. I think the Vikings are a team that are going all in more. And it's a crazy thing to think because the Vikings had a very tumultuous offseason. They seemed like they were going to be just fine, like taking a year off. J.J. McCarthy goes down. They deal with a slew of other injuries. Everybody leaves. Then they turn around, they get off to this awesome start, are the second to last undefeated team, have lost 2 straight games. Obviously, losing Christian Darrisaw is a huge, huge loss. Andre says, what a steal for Minnesota. Asks what Jacksonville is doing. Jacksonville is selling, right? Jacksonville is tanking, really, basically. There's a lot of teams at the bottom, though. This is going to be a very interesting year because there has never been a more stark dividing line between the haves and the have-nots in the NFL. And I'm very, very excited to see where this goes, see who actually is going to make moves, who is ready to give in. There's a couple teams that I think should. There's a couple teams that I think also should but won't. The Saints are one that I think definitely should, just sell the team. They're a team that's going through a cap struggle. They've been going through it for forever at this point. Ever since Drew Brees retired, and it's not getting any easier. They just keep kicking the can down the road, and eventually their time's going to come up, and they're just going to be rock bottom in the league. We're starting to see that happen. They've had to deal with their fair share of injuries. I think it's time they just let everybody go, except for a couple of young key pieces there. That's just my thoughts, though. Giants, maybe they trade a couple guys. Maybe. I would really hate if they did, but I'm sure they could get a really big price for a guy like a Dexter Lawrence, although I don't think there's a way that they end up trading him. There's a couple of moves out there for these guys to make. There are a lot. Like I said, you look at the bottom 10 in the league, all of them have 2 wins or less. And that is something that you never see this late into the season. That many bad teams in the league. That just means there's no real middle class in the league, which means everyone's either going to be all in or all out, which is setting up for what we see, a wild trade deadline upcoming. And they got it. They can continue to be that offensive line help. We will see, though. A long season ahead. We're only halfway done, and the trade deadline still just under a week away. So we will see what happens. Let me know what you thought. Who made the best trade of the trade deadline so far? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the NBA power rankings after the first week of action. Andre says the Saints should just trade Olave. That's an interesting one. You look at a lot of teams that would love to get Olave. I think he's going to be one of the cornerstones of their rebuild. He's still young, which is why I don't think they trade him. But anybody that's on their second contract or later, I think should be ready to pack their bags for the Saints. We're going to take a quick break, get into the NBA power rankings when we come back. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports.
Looking for your daily fix? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 30th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over 2 of the bigger trades that have just happened at the deadline. Dionte Johnson joining the Baltimore Ravens back in the NFC North, and Cam Robinson to the Minnesota Vikings, shoring up an offensive line position that they had just lost and looked completely different without. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA real quick, going over the week 2 now, NBA power rankings. Post week 1 NBA power rankings coming up in just 1 second. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 30th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA. A wild first week of the season has come and gone. We'll talk about some of the big changes that have happened in the NBA with these NBA power rankings. At number 30, starting off strong, the Detroit Pistons. Once again, the Detroit Pistons, there's going to be a lot of haves and have-nots, and they continue to be a have-not. They are the only they're one of the only two winless teams. They're 0-4 right now. They haven't looked their best. They've looked better than last season, which isn't that high of a bar, but they have not looked their best. They put up a good fight against the Celtics over the weekend, but aside from that, it just has not been that great of a start to the season. It's not too far from expectations, but they are back at the bottom of the league, in my opinion. They have the talent. They have the ability to make up a little bit of ground from where they were last season, but they're not getting anywhere near the playoffs or the play-ins. At least, I don't think they are, but we'll see. At 29, it's the Wizards. The Wizards also have not looked very good. They're able to get at least one win, though. They were able to get one over the Hawks earlier on this season, able to get the three-point shot going. It's been an interesting start for this rookie class, right? And we'll talk a little bit more as we get to some of these other teams. But second overall pick, Alex Sarr, has been awful. Trash. Really, really bad at basketball. He's not a guy that was expected to come in and, show out right away, but he's a guy that you wanted to see more of than shooting about 30% from the field. He's gotten a little bit better after game one, a little bit better as time has gone on, but it has not been anything to write home about at all. The Washington Wizards are at 29. At 28, it's the other winless team, the Utah Jazz. The Jazz have a team that is not built to win a lot of games, right? They've got I like watching this Jazz team. They've got a really interesting mix of players, but it's not one that is lined up very well to be very successful. They, like the Pistons, are still winless, and it's early. There's 82 games to play. They've only played 4 of them, but not a good start, not a very optimistic start for a team that thought maybe they would find a way to sneak in to that last play-in spot. At 27, it's the Brooklyn Nets. This is exactly what we thought the Brooklyn Nets would be, right? A high-powered offensive team that if you go cold against them, they're going to make you pay. This is just a fun team to watch. They're not very good. They're not pretending to be very good, but they're a team that they can drop 130 on you on just about any night. So it's a fun team to watch. That's the only reason they're a little bit higher than these other teams. This is a team that I think could compete with some good teams if those good teams had a bad day. At 26, it's the Portland Trail Blazers. They've played a couple of close ones. Their young talent seems like they're taking a little bit of a step up, at least to me. Because of that, they're still in that bottom tier, that really, really bad tier in the NBA. But I see the vision just a little bit. They're not ready this year, but maybe if they can continue to develop their young stars, they could potentially, and hit on the draft this year. That's a big and. They could potentially have something going into next season. Still a tough West, though. 25, it's the Toronto Raptors. It doesn't hurt that they've started. It doesn't help that they've started the season injured. They still drop a bunch of spots. They're down 5 spots, the biggest droppers so far that we've gone over. Injuries definitely don't help. When they start to get healthier, I think they'll climb this list a little bit. But for now, due to their injuries, they're going to be sitting back near the bottom of the league. At 24, the Chicago Bulls. They just have not looked exciting, really, in the slightest. You have, at least for now, a healthy Zach LaVine. Kobe White has been playing really good basketball, but still, this is a team that they just don't have the juice this year. They didn't make the right moves in the offseason. They're going to try with futility to try and be something, but hopefully they sell at the deadline this year. I hope they've learned their lesson. At 23, it's the Charlotte Hornets. You talk about an exciting team, an exciting duo over there. LaMelo Ball has been balling out. He alone, as an offensive engine, has been enough to keep them in games. go toe to toe with some very high powered offenses in this league. Still not a team that can play very effective defense, but they are a team that can drop, again, 130 on your head if you're not paying attention. The Pacers at 22 have been one of the most disappointing teams to me this season. We saw them make a deep run in the Eastern Conference last year, but Tyrese Halliburton just has not been it this year. He has really struggled from the field, really struggled from three, and you can see the difference on this Pacers team when Halliburton is on and Halliburton is off. Right now, he's off. I'm sure they'll find a way to fix this as the season continues. This Pacers team is too deep, too talented, but you see the issue with a team that does not have those guys on defense when the offense isn't clicking through your main offensive engine. At 21, it's the Spurs, and this is a Spurs team that, again, a lot of these teams at the bottom we did not expect to be that great, but Victor Wembanyama hasn't come out and been that super elite guy we expect. He hasn't taken that huge step that a lot of people were expecting him to. He's still been awesome, don't get me wrong, but you add Chris Paul to that mix, and Victor Wembanyama just has not been playing like he was at the end of last season. Maybe he needs to get back into it, but he's been taking a lot of jump shots. I want to see him get down low, play a little bit more like a big man, even if he is just a little bit skinny. At 20, it's the Hawks. They've reeled off a couple of impressive wins. They've looked pretty good this season, but this is still a Hawks team that, outside of Trae Young, when Trae Young isn't doing his thing, is very weak defensively. Again, no one was thinking this is going to be a Hawks team that's going to be able to beat you on the defensive end of the basketball court. The Atlanta Hawks have Trae Young. We talk about that number 1 overall draft pick. We talked about Alex Sarr earlier, and Risha Shea. My God, he's been near unplayable right now for the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks have had a couple guys step up, but I still don't believe in the depth of this team enough to raise them past 20. They've played better than I thought they were going to start the season, though. At 19, it's the Kings. This is a team that, on paper, looks pretty solid. We're starting to get out of the absolute trash tier right now as we head into the bad tier. The Kings, on paper, pretty good. You've got a lot of great players. You've wasted some good performances from a DeMar DeRozan early on in this season. They're going to start to click as a group a little more, but again, the defense is going to be a concern with this team. At 18, the Houston Rockets. A lot of young guys needing to develop. We've been waiting on the Rockets young guys to really take that next step. They're 2-2 right now. They're starting to take that next step. Still early in the season again. I've been happy with what I've seen out of the Rockets, but not enough to really give them a boost. They stay where they were at the preseason at number 18. 17 goes to the Pelicans, and I was ready to move them up a little more. We had a couple of clutch moments from this team. This Zion Williamson block, a big shot hit over Anthony Simons by Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's been playing red hot to start the season, but then they just had to go out and lose to a Steph Curry-less and Andrew Wiggins-less Golden State team. This is a Pelicans team that's way too inconsistent right now. They've got a lot of good going. They really do. But you cannot blow a 20-point lead to a Steph Curry-less Golden State team and expect to stay too high in the rankings. They dropped just a little bit. At number 16, it is those Warriors. A Warriors team that I think has struggled to find its footing just a little bit. Now they've won they've won 3 out of their first 4 games, but they've also played, the Trailblazers, the Jazz, the Clippers, and the Pelicans. They've had to make a decision to bench Jonathan Kuminga already, which isn't a good look. I think Kuminga is still a startable player. He hasn't been living up to expectations, but is still a startable player. This is a Golden State team that, while it has Steph Curry, it still has a pulse. So they're not out of it yet. But I start to question how real this team's chances in the playoffs really are. 15, it's the Milwaukee Bucks, another team that's been very disappointing. They're one of our biggest droppers this week. They dropped 10 spots to number 15. again, no Chris Middleton. That perimeter defense might be the worst in the league. As good as that pick and roll with Giannis and Dame is, when you have Doc Rivers as your coach, it historically has not been the answer. It's not working right now. They need to make a change somewhere. And I mean, I hate to say fire your coach in the middle of the season again, but I think you need to move off of Doc Rivers. At 14, it's the 76ers. They've been mired in controversy really since the season began. Joel Embiid not playing every single day. That's fine. I don't really have too much of an issue with it. They say they're not being transparent, but I say they're being more transparent than any team in the NBA right now, saying that Joel Embiid will not play back-to-backs, basically. You know, at least the fans know what to expect here. Still sucks. They haven't really been all that we expect. They're another team that dropped pretty far in our rankings, down 8 spots, but a lot that you can like out of this Sixers team once they get going. At 13, it's the Miami Heat. On the court, Jimmy Butler still doing his thing. This is going to be a Heat team that's going to be hanging around this 10 to 16 range all season, depending on what kind of effort their players put out in the regular season. Maybe this is a year that they really try in the regular season. They don't want to get caught off guard like last year. Maybe not. This is a Heat team that I'm never going to count out, at least until they reach the playoffs. But it's not one of those top-tier teams in the East anymore. At 12, it's the Denver Nuggets, and this team really is just at number 12 because of Nikola Jokic. Jokic is the best player in the world, and you can see that very clearly whenever the Denver Nuggets play. With him on the court, the Denver Nuggets are a top 5 team. Without him on the court, the Denver Nuggets are a bottom 5 team. So it kind of averages out here. He is the team. It is not good for the Nuggets how they have nothing, no juice when he is not on the court. And it's been an issue for a very long time in Denver. They won a championship with it being an issue, but it's never been more glaring than it is right now. They need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out fast if they want to be treated as contenders in the West. At 11, it's the Knicks. It took them a little bit to get going. Obviously, they got absolutely thwomped on game 1 by the Celtics. That's going to happen when the opponent shoots 60% from 3. But they're starting to find their footing a little bit. They've looked a little bit better as the season's gone on. This is a Knicks team I'm not worried about. I think they just need to figure out how to mesh with each other with the last-second trade of Cat coming in and losing Dionte DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. At 10, it's the Clippers. I've been very, very impressed by this Clippers team. Zubac, especially, what he's been able to do down low. James Harden looks like he's coming back to peak James Harden, at least in the beginning of the season. I'm not sure how sustainable this is, but that new arena is awesome, and the Clippers look like they're playing really good basketball right now. At 9, it's the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm still very high on this team. They haven't been who's who of all that, but there's a lot of good that's come out of this Memphis Grizzlies team so far. You've seen a lot. You've seen the return of course, Ja Morant, that being a big one. They've played some tight matchups. They just lost a close one to the Bulls. I'm not panicking with this team. I think this team is really explosive and can play with just about anybody. The Grizzlies are at number 9. At number 8, the Minnesota Timberwolves, another team that's kind of been up and down, goes as their stars go. Anthony Richardson, wrong sport. Anthony Edwards here has been playing really good basketball for at least half of the season. He's kind of a little bit inconsistent. That's kind of what you get out of him, though. The trade for Julius Randle, it's kind of 50-50. Hasn't really been working out yet. Dionte DiVincenzo's been playing really good ball on the offensive end. This is a talented Minnesota Timberwolves team, and I'm not worried about them until we get to the playoffs. At 7, it's the Mavs. The Mavs, they just play good basketball, right? I hate to keep saying that, but Luka Doncic continues to be one of the, if not the best player in the NBA. Kyrie Irving still has some magic left in him. Klay Thompson puts up some stinkers, but when he's on, he's going to set a record for a debut as far as threes made and points on the team. he can still stroke it with the best of them, right? This is a Mavericks team that's either going to be one of the best in the league every night, or they're going to be kind of mediocre, and you just got to flip a coin on which team you're going to get. At 6, it's the Phoenix Suns. We've seen them get by on that very high-end talent. Kevin Durant playing really good ball right now. Devin Booker has his moments where he just can't miss. Bradley Beal is playing really good right now as well. Their big three, all healthy, all playing together. You see why they are sometimes considered a title contender. At 5, it's the Lakers. Adding in J.J. Redick as the head coach has made just a 180 of a difference. You see everybody talking about it. LeBron James has struggled a little bit offensively, but Anthony Davis is playing like an MVP caliber player right now. Dalton Connect, really good at stepping up off the bench, hitting a couple of threes. J.J. Redick is coaching that team up, and that is making a huge difference. The Cavs at 4, one of the last undefeated teams right now. They're just playing team basketball. Evan Mobley is playing really good. This might be his breakout year. That would be huge for them if they can get that going. The Cavs are at number 4. At number 3 is the Magic, and maybe that's a little bit high, but what I've seen out of Paolo Banchero, what he's been able to develop, the addition of KCP on the defensive end in particular, not really offensively, but the rest of the team is helping out on offense. This is a much improved Magic team, and I'm a big fan of what they can do this season. And of course, number 2, the top 2 teams haven't changed. The Oklahoma City Thunder continue to dominate everyone in front of them. They're one of the 3 undefeated teams. They just have been dominant on the court every single night. And so have the number 1 team, the Boston Celtics. They have been the most dominant team every single night. It doesn't matter where it's coming from, whether it's Peyton Pritchard dropping 28 points on someone's head, whether it's Jason Tatum going off at Madison Square Garden. This is a team that seemingly has no weaknesses, and the NBA has no answers for them. They are the number 1 team, and they will continue to be, as they are the best team in basketball. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this list. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention back to the NFL. The NFL Rookie Report for Week 8 has come out. We'll talk about all of the offensive rookie performances, rank the top 5, and give you some honorable mentions. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 30th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the NBA Power Rankings after Week 1. Not too much of a sample size to go off, but some surprise teams, some teams starting off slow. In this segment, we turn our attention back to the NFL, the Week 8 NFL Rookie Report, hot off the press, ready for you. We give you our top 5 rookies and, of course, the honorable mentions. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 30th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we're getting back into the NFL here. The Week 8 NFL Rookie Report is here, and as always, we start off with our honorable mentions. For the first time all season, Caleb Williams does not make the top 5. He is our one and only honorable mention, not because of his stat line, not very exciting, 10 for 24, 131 yards, adding 41 more on the ground, but because of what he was able to do in the fourth quarter. He had an abysmal first couple of quarters in this game. Absolutely nothing going on offense. Absolutely nothing going through the air. He turned it on in the fourth quarter, led a potential game-winning touchdown drive that was squandered at the goal line, fumbled by an offensive lineman. Then another potential game-winning drive that was squandered by the defense on a really all-time play. Hail Mary over there in Washington. That was a really good performance in the fourth quarter. The rest of the game was not very good, though. The rest of the rookies did not have a great week. It was a struggle to even find 5. I'm not going to lie to you. Number 5 is Malik Neighbors, though. 7 for 71, a lot of that coming in desperation garbage time there. He hasn't really had a huge week since coming back from his concussion, but this was a start against a Steelers defense that's really been solid all season long. You get a Giants offense that's been very not explosive. He's still able to get over the 70-yard mark. He's been really good in every situation, an excellent route runner, great at getting those extra yards when you need him to. Still was not a great Giants team, though. At number 4, this is when we really get to start here. Keon Coleman had his second straight really good game in a row. Didn't lead the team in receiving, caught another touchdown, though. 5 for 70 and that touchdown that was mentioned earlier. Keon Coleman is coming into his own here. He's getting better and better every single time he's on the football field. Josh Allen getting more and more comfortable with him every time they play together. That is what you're looking at. This is a guy that is not very good at making separation. He doesn't have the biggest route tree, but the Bills are using him correctly. And that is what we're waiting for. The Bills are using him in those jump ball situations. He reminds me of the way that George Pickens of the things that George Pickens is really good at. They need to use him in the same way. He's going to win a lot of those contested 50-50 balls. That's a really good receiver for Josh Allen to have when he's in trouble. Just throw it up to Keon Coleman. He's big, strong, physical, should be able to wrestle it away from a lot of other corners. He had another great game on Sunday. Our number 3 rookie, another Giant, Tyrone Tracy. How about a 5th-round rookie, converted wide receiver, going 20 carries, 145 yards, and a touchdown, adding 5 more yards through the air. He has been awesome since taking over for Devin Singletary. Every single game that he has been the main lead back, the Giants and Tyrone Tracy have had a great game on the ground. He's been over 100 yards every single time he's been the main ball carrier. Sucks that he got a concussion at the end, but the explosivity he brings to this Giants team is awesome. And for that, he gets the number 3 rookie of the week. Getting into the top 2 here. At number 2, and this might start a riot a little bit, but number 2 is Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels did have the best play by a rookie. Point blank period. The best play. He did not have the best week as a rookie. That entire game, he started off slow. He had that rib injury. I understand. They were able to move the ball up and down the field 20-20, but once they got into the red zone, they couldn't get anything done. Finishes with over 300 yards passing, 1 touchdown through the air, adds another 52 rushing yards on the ground. He was very, very effective, and of course, that touchdown that he threw, of course, being the Hail Mary to Noah Brown at the end, but he needs to be able to punch it in the red zone. I know it's not all on him, but this is a Commanders team that has had an issue in the red zone, not just this game, but in games in the past. There was a game against the Giants in week 2 where they did not get a single touchdown after moving the ball very similarly to this Bears game. Jaden Daniels very much played a great game in a condition that you don't expect him to do everything that he did in that game to do, but I want to see more out of him. I want to see what our number 1 rookie did this week, that being Bo Nix. I have been very vocal about not liking Bo Nix, and that's not going to change. I'm not a big Bo Nix fan. But Bo Nix, what he did this Sunday really did impress me. We talked a little bit about it yesterday when we were going over the power rankings, but Bo Nix every single week is getting more comfortable making deeper throws, hitting throws over the middle. That's what I've been waiting to see out of him. Can he extend plays? Yes. Can he keep the plays alive behind the backfield, behind the line of scrimmage in the backfield, and find those receivers down the field? He's showing that more and more. And yes, I know it was against the Panthers, but really good efficiency, almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, adding another touchdown on the ground. He had a really good game, and he wins my Rookie of the Week. Bo Nix played great football this week. Now, as we turn our attention to the overall Rookie of the Year race, it hasn't really changed. There was a chance for Caleb Williams to snatch the crown away from Jaden Daniels. He whiffed on that opportunity. Jaden Daniels comes out with a huge win. Absolutely jumps much further ahead in the race. Not as far as he's ever been. This race is not over, but he has absolutely cemented himself at the top of that list. Jaden Daniels at the top of the Rookie of the Year list. Not over yet, though. Let me know what you think, though. Who had the best week as a rookie in the NFL? Would love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we close out our show. The World Series continues. We had a Game 4 that saw the Yankees finally hit the ball. They had not been able to do that all series long. A interesting fan interaction and a blowout in the Bronx to force a Game 5. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, October 30th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the rookie report for Week 8 of the NFL. A big week for some rookies. We had a brand new Rookie of the Week show up this week. Fun week in football. In this segment, we finish off our show, getting into the World Series. The World Series was on sweep alert. It was extended with a big game out of the Yankees, extending it to Game 5 here. We'll see if they continue that magic coming up tonight. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, October 30th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the MLB here. Another game of baseball coming down the pipeline tonight. This time we get a rematch from Game 1. Garrett Cole taking on Jack Flaherty. We saw what happened in Game 1. Obviously, Freddie Freeman hit that walk-off grand slam. A great game by both of these pitchers. We'll get into that. We'll get into this matchup here. But talking about Game 4, This was a game that the Yankees needed to keep their season alive, obviously, and it started off not so good. For the second game in a row, Freddie Freeman, first inning, hits a 2-run home run to start off the festivities. Freddie Freeman has now hit a home run in six straight World Series games, breaking a record. He also has a record for now the most RBIs in a single World Series by a Dodger in history. He is playing out of his mind right now the way that he goes. There's no reason to think he's going to stop. Now, of course, the more we talk about it, the more it seems like it's not going to happen. But right now, he's on an absolute tear. Now, more drama happened early on in this game. The Yankees obviously had been struggling. In the first inning, a pop-up down the right field line goes into the stands where Mookie Betts makes a great catch leaping on the wall. A fan steals the ball out of his glove. One of the wildest things I have ever seen a fan do in person on television. Just tears open his glove, takes the ball right out. Obviously, they get banned from the stadium. New York treating them like heroes, of course. You gotta D up when we're over there, right? A really great quote from that fan. They're banned for Game 5. We'll see if more antics ensue. But after that, the Yankees decide to remember how to hit the ball. Now, this was a bullpen game for the Dodgers. We talked about that yesterday when we were previewing it. This was a bullpen game for the Dodgers. They didn't throw their best arms, but they got out there, and the Yankees went off. Volpe, a young shortstop for the Yankees, hits a grand slam. Not only that, but he is the one that really gets them going. He had a huge game. In a game where Aaron Judge finally got going just a little bit, didn't have a great game, but got going near the end, a game that really got, swung wide open by this offense. Austin Wells hits a home run as well. This was just a game where everyone showed up for the Yankees. Elimination, they were ready for it, but it was also a game where it felt like the Dodgers weren't pitching their A game. Now you get a matchup in Game 5. This is a situation that has the potential for a first time in history. We talked about it a little bit. Of all the series in the World Series that have gone to 3-0, not a single one has ever made it to Game 6. The Yankees have the ability to push this and make history here if they can send the series back to LA. This is not going to be easy, though. It's Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty, a rematch of Game 1. The Dodgers are going all out. They want to end it here. They want to win as soon as possible, and I completely get it. You don't want to tempt fate anymore. This is a game. This is now the 6th time in Garrett Cole's career that he's been on a do or die kind of situation. He's 2-3 in these situations in his career, looking to try to get to 500. Again, this is a game. We'll talk about these keys again. Freddie Freeman continues to hit the cover off the baseball like nobody in history has. A record for consecutive home runs in a World Series game at 6, dating back to his time on the Braves, when he homered in the final 2 games of that World Series. This is something that they're going to need to try and stop. Don't let him hit a home run. Sounds easy, right? You also need to slow down the rest of that offense, an offense that did not have its best game yesterday. It had some moments, but it was unable to convert in key runners in scoring position opportunities. That's something that they've been really good at all postseason long, taking advantage of runners in scoring position. They were unable to do that in this game. Yankees, on the other hand, were much better at it. And of course, that's going to be a key hit in clutch moments. But also, we talk about it every time. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto kind of got a little bit of their swing back in this game. It's going to be crucial that they continue getting their swing back. Jack Flaherty's not going to be easy guy to swing on. Neither is Garrett Cole. I expect this one to be a low-scoring affair. I expect this one to be back and forth. Yankees playing with their backs to the wall. That's when they're the most dangerous. They're going all out. I'm just worried about how much gas they have left in the tank. I'm going to pick the Yankees in this one. I think Garrett Cole is able to extend it. I don't think Jack Flaherty is going to be able to do it twice in a row against this really good Yankees lineup. We will see, though. I'm very excited for this. See if this series can continue. It's been an awesome World Series so far. Make sure you tune into it tonight. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning into today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow talking about all of the biggest news from around the world of sports. So make sure you tune back in then. I will see you same time, same place. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of